Yeah, sure.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Locust Grove. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate you being here today. I'm Rob Doyle. I'm the current president of the Dutchess County Historical Society. And it's our pleasure to have you here today and to welcome our guest speaker, David Heskes, who has come from Connecticut with his wife and daughters that are in the back, and to give us a great presentation on conservation. I'll just say a couple of things. I've known David for many years, and all of his staff out there. They do a fantastic job on conservation of paintings, cleaning and restoring paintings. And I collect 19th century Hudson River School paintings of views of the Hudson River, and have about 100. And every one of them goes to Yost before they hang on our wall. So I take them out, or in many cases have them shipped there directly from wherever we purchase a painting. We have it shipped first to Yost Conservation and have them look at it. They'll reach out to me and tell me what it needs. In 2 cases over the last 25 years, they discovered fakes, 2 that were not, the signatures were added, were not original signatures. And it took a letter from them to actually get a refund back from the place where they were purchased from. So that's one of the things I like to do, is to be very careful, number one, with what we're taking in, and number two, we want things conserved properly. If there's services out there you have to be somewhat careful about, because not everyone can do a really good job. If they take off more than they should, you end up with a painting that's stripped of some original colors and all, which is going to be very, very difficult to do anything with to fix. When you look at the collection around this room, Yost Conservation conserved all the ones that have been conserved. Not everything has been conserved yet in the collection. We did a fundraiser at my house some years back to raise money, and some of you are here that helped with that, and thank you very much. We needed to raise $10,000 in order to get the paintings, about 20 of them, completely conserved. And once we raised the money, the paintings went to Tom Yost, and now all the people that are at Yost to conserve. And even the couple that are in here on loan were conserved at the same place, even though we didn't send them there. So they did a great job, and if you had seen these paintings ahead of time, maybe he'll share some things with you on that, but it's amazing what will happen. You have to understand that way back then, 19th century, you had a lot of smoke in the house, you had fireplaces, you had lots of stuff going on, and these paintings can get really dirty, and besides that, they can get damaged and all. So anyway, they do a great job. And David's here to talk to us about this, and I really want to thank, he's donating his time to come here. He does have some business cards in his pocket. He didn't want to put anything out. I said, you should put out stuff, but see him afterwards if you need anything done or whatever, you'd like a card. And but he's here to explain to you the processes and all. And I really appreciate you donating your time and coming here with your family. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. I am David Heskes. I am one of the owners of Yost Conservation. This is Francisco Hoyos. He's the other owner, and I am David Heskes. This is my first PowerPoint presentation, so I have to say, well, don't nervous. We're going to get through it. A lot of people had some advice from me. They said, imagine everyone's naked. I don't want to do that. I don't think you want to do it. So if you don't do it to me, I won't do it to you. And I promise we're not going to talk about politics or gender or COVID. Let's talk about art. Okay. So we are LLC, a limited corporation, a limited liability corporation. We are not a museum. And the reason I say this is because we have done 1,100 paintings this year. A museum will work on one for 6 months. So we are about producing paintings for museums, galleries, collectors. I started off as an illustrator. I graduated from 1996 with a bachelor's degree in art. So that was where I started. These are just a couple of things that I've done. COVID was on everyone's minds. I couldn't help it. Jerry Garcia. And just a couple of my landscapes and the truck. So I think I was hired by Tom Yost, who is the founder of the company, back in 1999. And at that point, having an art degree was so important. I was hired as an in-painter. An in-painter is someone who paints back damage to paintings. So if a painting has a rip in it or losses or some sort of damage, my job was to sit at the easel and make it look right again. When you do that, it's so important that your in-painting is minimal. You don't want to go and reinterpret the artist's ideas. So, a conservator. Our conservators includes principles or practices of technical examination and documentation. Everything that comes in is extremely documented. It's so important that we know where it's from, where it's going, and who's owned it in the past. And treatment for objects and material culture. The intention of art conservation is to improve the condition of an artifact by stabilizing physical condition problems and addressing surface disfigurement arising from deterioration and or damage. In doing so, the art conservator strives to retain as much original material as possible and to employ the best quality materials and the most careful, considered methods available by the Art Conservation Alliance. And that is accurate. That is what we do. Carolyn Clowes. From attic to exhibit, this is what we're doing here. All of these paintings that are here have been restored by us. Now, Carolyn was very fortunate. In some ways, her paintings were stored in an attic space and in her studio. That is the home that they were also hung in. I say fortunate because they were only exposed to minimal amount of handling and damage. Yes, you had soot, and yes, you had nicotine, and yes, you had just general dirt. But the paintings themselves, being kept in her studio, on her property, and in that storage shed that Linda Hubbard owns, actually kept them safe from damage. Fluctuations in humidity are a problem, but they weren't handled. That is a big thing. So when we got them at our studio, they required some treatment, some cleaning, some hot table treatments, which I'll get into. But overall, the condition of the paintings was pretty good. I have a couple of examples. This painting here has soot, dirt, nicotine, yellow resin varnish. Varnish was put on a painting to preserve the colors and protect the surface of the painting. That varnish is made from resin, from trees. It turns yellow. Once that varnish becomes yellow, the paintings become yellow. So once we cleaned it, it looks more like this. And this is what Carolyn wanted. Everybody has ideas about what art is. Antique dealers like them to look antique-y. Museums like them to look pristine. And the general public has mixed opinions. We are conservators. We like them to look the way the artist intended. But obviously, we are a reliability corporation, so we have to deal with what the client wants. But in this case, we did a full job, a full Monty, a full cleaning. We revarnished them and made them look nice, clean, and pristine. Here's another painting. Now this painting, this is before in painting and after in painting. We document the paintings when they come into the studio, and then we have a photograph of what they look like with dirt, resin, nicotine. Once they're clean, we take another photograph so that any dispute or question about what we have done in the past, we have a record of. In this case, there's some damage along that lower area, up along that top edge. We in-painted those with little number 1 brushes. Imagine your pencil has a little pointer on it. That's what we use. So we in-paint those little areas to make it look nice, clean, pristine, and go back to the auction house or the museum or the dealer. And this painting here, another one of hers, this is in the back. Hopefully, if you've looked at it, you did not notice, but there is a large loss and a tear in the middle of the canvas, and another one here on the lower edge. Those required a patch consolidation, so it was a local consolidation with a vinyl patch. That patch covers up the tear. This is an old patch, we actually removed that. I don't want you to think that's ours. That doesn't look so good. We removed that patch, we put a new vinyl patch on the back. We filled it, we in-painted it, we varnished it, and it looks like that. Here's another one of hers. And I have to say, she was a beautiful artist. She had some recognition in her time, but not as much as the men. But honestly, she deserves to be in that upper echelon. She's very talented, and you can see by her drawings, which are all academic, all finely tuned and studied. And the work that she did in Florida and here in Dutchess County, they both deserve the recognition that she's now getting. Can anybody tell me the wealthiest artist that's ever lived? Anybody? Thomas Kincaid. The only artist to ever make it on the Dow Jones Industrial. We have mixed opinions. I'm not really a big fan, but he deserves some recognition anyway. Another one of hers. And obviously, most of these paintings are around the gallery space. You can look at them all. Another beautiful painting of hers. I think we have one or two more. This is a particularly nice one. Nice. I love the sharp red color in contrast to the head. And a beautiful job on the muzzle and on the faces. And you really get an impression of the gentle dog teasing the cat.
That cat's not going to be gentle.
No, not for very long. And what a nice, serene painting this is. And perspectively, the way she has this horizontal line, and it frames the lambs in a beautiful way. She really was very good. So art conservation, this process, we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to get from the storage area, the barn, the basement, fixed up and brought into a gallery, a museum, a dealer, on the wall. Let's see. For every painting that comes in, we have documentation. We go around and look at every part of the painting. We go from the surface condition, the structural condition, the previous conservation, because so many of these paintings have been restored in the past, and we are now the second person to touch it, the third person to touch it. Conservation has been around since the 18th century, so we are not the first ones to do it. Recommended treatment, and then what we have done. It all has to be documented, it all has to be understood, so that the people that own it understand the provenance of what this painting has been through. Identifying the artist. That is step number one. Do we know the artist? Do we recognize the hand? Is there a signature? Artists do funny things. They don't always sign it. Sometimes they do. If we can identify it, we can. So these are a couple of books that we used to use. Dictionary of Signature and Monograms of American Artists. The Encyclopedia of Artist Signatures, Symbols, and Monograms. Both of these books from 1988, and I think the one was 1999. They were essential when I first started the business 25 years ago. This was what you used to go and find a signature, to recognize what it looked like. And inside, look at this. All the different ways that an artist would sign a painting. Samuel Morse on the bottom. Beautiful. Look at Thomas Moran on the top. This little arrow is important. Whistler, the artist Whistler, he used to sign things with a butterfly. You would have no idea that it was even him, but on the back, sometimes it would be a butterfly impression or a butterfly somewhere in the painting. It was black, he had a certain way of doing it. Now we have Ask Art. What a fantastic thing. We just go on the internet, we type in the artist's name, type in the last name, type in the first name, there's a match. Again, Carolyn Clowes, she has one painting on here, and the thing about Ask Art is you have to have an auction record. If you want to be recognized as an artist, so often there's an auction record. Once we go into Ask Art, we have all these different ways of looking at our bio information, signatures, dealers, price my art. We go on to Samuel Morse. Again, different ways that he signed the painting. Different examples of what he felt was a good signature, if he signed them at all. Then we have an auction record of what his values are worth, what it was worth at the last sale, what it will be worth in the future. And for every painting, we have to evaluate. As I said, we go through those steps. We have that worksheet to make sure that we document everything that we see. First thing we look at is the tacking edges. Whether these edges are original, whether it's on the same stretcher bar for the life of the painting. So often, this nail represents that it has been moved. That nail, somebody else put that there. This nail, somebody else put that there. This has not been on that stretcher bar the entire time. Somebody took it off, screwed with it, replaced the stretcher bar, something. So we inspect that tacking edge when we first get the painting. Stretcher bars, another thing that we have to go and evaluate. Are they good? Are they sound? Are they strong? Are they original? Are they American? Are they English? Are they European? Do they have their keys? Is it a keyable stretcher bar? Will it expand? Will it add tension to the painting? This one in the back, it's not keyable. It's not the right stretcher bar for a painting. Canvases have to stay tight. They have to stay rigid. If they don't, that canvas fluctuates with humidity, bows and contracts, gains wrinkles. We have a microscope. We look underneath the microscope to identify paint layers, paint chips. We look at the back of the paint chip if we have to figure out what is it painted on. Is it painted on boards? Is it painted on paper, canvas, linen, gesso? And the surface of the painting. This particular painting has raised structural cracks. That's what this is. Again, fluctuations in humidity. Once that canvas starts to have an impression on it, it'll start to bow, causing an impression on the surface layer, causing cracks. Those cracks aren't treated, it'll become worse and worse and worse. The painting will start to delaminate, the paint will cup, and it'll come off, it'll be flaking. And there we go, flaking. Again, this painting, the structural cracks have happened, they've formed, and that paint layer has become delaminated and flaked from the canvas. And another view of the microscope. So one of the first things that we do is we clean the painting. I wear a mask. We're dealing with some chemicals that aren't so nice. Acetones, toluene, naphtha, those are sort of on the so-and-so. But once you get into toluene, diethylmethylide, then it becomes a bit more toxic. So we have to wear the mask, and it gets hot in the summer. So I'm a little sweaty. One of the first things I do is I do a test window. I look to see what can come off. Am I using soaps? Am I using alcohol? Am I using acetones? What takes this dirt and grime off the painting? On this painting, we have dirt and a little yellow resin varnish. Again, varnish made from tree sap. It turns yellow. Once that happens, it adheres to the paint layer, and we have to remove it with chemical. And this is a test cleaning. So again, here I am cleaning the surface of this painting. I have a little paint swab. That's what I do. I have a bucket. I have a little swab, a little stick. I do a little spot, maybe inch big. Clean it, wipe that surface, and start again. I do that inch by inch by inch through the entire painting. So I don't screw it up. I don't take more painting than I need to. I don't break into that surface layer of impasto. I want to keep it clean. I don't want to make more work for myself by ruining it, by taking chemical and wiping things away, wiping away signatures. Ugh. So we're very careful to be very conservative, very slow, and very careful. And then structural strategy. In this case, this is Francisco, and he has a painting here that he's laying out, and he's figuring out, okay, this painting came in, it was in a bar in Manhattan, and it had just been sitting there for decades. And he has to now figure out, okay, what am I going to do? I need to line this painting. I need to buy stretcher bars for this painting. I need to consolidate this painting. How's the best approach? Will it fit on the table? What's next? Integrity of the structure. As I said, the stretcher bars are important. The linen is important. This painting here has a huge tear that you can see on the back of the painting. It was punctured, so now we have to figure out, are these stretcher bars strong enough to hold this painting? We have to fix the stretcher bars. What has to happen to that linen so that it's secure, so that it's safe? I think we're going to have to do a lining, and I'll talk about what linings are as we go a little bit further along. Every painting has a sticker on it. Has the date that it came in, it has the number that is placed, it has the frame that accompanied it, so we have to have a constant record of what the painting is, where it's gone, what stage of conservation it's in, and what's next. Now this is a hot table, and this is a canvas lining, is what we have noted here. This table has vacuum, it has heat, and it has pressure. So every painting that comes in, some paintings are wrinkled, some are damaged, some have buckles in them. What we do is we add a little moisture to them. We put them on this hot table, and we add heat, pressure, and vacuum. And we get those buckles and wrinkles out until it's nice and flat and tight again. Now, depending on what each painting needs, this might be all it needs. It might just simply need a table treatment. or it might need a canvas lining. If it's a canvas lining, it involves the canvas, a mylar leaf, and a fabric backing. With Biva Adhesive 371, that is our conservation adhesive, pulling all those together like an Oreo cookie, put in the microwave. It adds heat, pressure, vacuum, and consolidates that canvas, makes it tight, makes it strong, makes it hangable, and it'll last longer than I will be doing this. Here's a few other paintings on the vacuum table. Again, there's no, we can control the amount of pressure that's added to each painting that's on this table and the amount of heat. Just by a simple adjustment, we can add more pressure, more heat to get that painting to lay flat. We can go up to 180 degrees before a painting starts to melt. At 180 to 200, you're kind of playing with fire. And at 200, you have a nice cooked painting. So we're careful. The heat starts gradual and it ends gradual. Same with the pressure. Anybody know what any of these paintings are? Guy Wiggins and Buttersworth. Now, throughout the era of conservation, the original way of conserving a painting was with rabbit skin glue. So, a rabbit, you find it, you kill it, you boil it, you take that glue, and then you, again, it's very much like what we do now. They add pressure, they try to add heat, and they glue that canvas to one another. They used to do that up until the turn of the 19th century, and then wax linings became popular. Again, beeswax. Beeswax, they melt it down, heat, pressure, same thing. We do it a little bit better now. We have better technology, better tools. Everything that we do is reversible. Back then, rabbit skin glue, not so reversible. We do it, it's difficult. If you're lucky, that rabbit skin glue has dried up and you can simply separate the canvas, but oftentimes that bind is strong. Wax lining, which is again beeswax, a little bit of heat, and that comes right apart. And this is a Biva lining. Again, this is Biva 371. This is the canvas that we use. We have paint layer, we have Biva, we have Mylar. Use a Mylar for rigidity, another coat of Biva, and canvas. And this is Francisco, and he's applying heated Biva adhesive to the back of this Mylar sheet. This is a dealer in Pennsylvania that deals with sporting library, and a painting that one of his clients had fell off the wall, huge tear in it. You can see this huge tear here that kind of goes through. It's about 14, 16 inches of tear. We had to do a canvas lining on it, a Biva lining, and all those areas of loss. And now it's ready to go back on the wall. And if we do our job right, you'll never know that it was there. But again, everything that we do is reversible, and there are no secrets. So with the right machinery, with the perfect ultraviolet light, you can see every inch of that damage. We're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to fool anyone. We're simply bringing it back to the way it was supposed to be presented on the wall. Wood panel conservation. Not only do we find paintings on canvas and on linen, oftentimes they're on panel or on board or whatever they can find to paint on. In this case, we had a panel that was cracked in two. It had a past conservation from a store at the turn of the century who put these crossbars in an attempt to support it. But wood fluctuates much more than canvas does. You start getting moisture in wood, too much humidity in a room, what happens? It starts to bow. With wood panels, the same thing happens. If you have a split in it, that split is always going to be there. We're good, but we're not magicians. So that crack is always going to be there. And although it might fluctuate and it might separate a little bit, we do our best to bring it back to a level of integrity where we can hang it, where it's not going to fall apart in 2 years. Hopefully you'll get 30 years out of a wood panel. There it is in two pieces. So the first thing we have to do with a wood panel, we have to get the moisture out. We have to get it to lay flat. We have to get it back to the way it was intended. We can't fix something that's broken. We have to get this bowing panel back even again, flat, where we can interlock those areas of damage and we can get that board back together again. And what we do is we put a bow tie biscuit in. I don't know if anybody actually knows what a bow tie biscuit is. You take a router and you cut into this board and you find a little biscuit, a bow tie biscuit, and you slide it in place so that now that board has no room to expand and contract. That biscuit keeps it in place so it doesn't have room to fluctuate. And again, before and after. This client was a private gentleman who the painting was a family heirloom. And basically he had 2 paintings. And after our conservation, he has a beautiful painting. The only thing I said to him was make sure this is an environmentally controlled environment. Don't have this near your fireplace. Don't have it in your basement. Don't have it in your attic. Find a nice room and an interior wall. Keep it out of the sun. And painting the lost. Again, this is one of the most important things of a painting. Every step is important, but if we don't do our in painting right, then every time you look at it, you're going to be annoyed at that old damage, at that loss. So let's look and see what we have. Here's our line of in painters, and as you can see, the brush is very small, and we want to keep it small. We want it to be precise. When we get a painting in, we talk about overpaint. Overpaint, and that's the old restorer's paint. Overpaint was done with a big brush. It was done with an approach to get the painting back on the wall. Let's not worry about what we're overpainting. Let's not worry about what we're covering. Let's get it back on the wall where we can hang it, move it, sell it, where a person can have it and look at it. That's not the way it is anymore. Now we in paint. We only paint these little damages of loss. We don't want to reinterpret what the artist intended. We don't want to go and put our ideas, our ideology on the surface of the painting. We want to keep it clean and precise. This is a painting the Union League in New York City sent us, Lincoln. And when it came to us, it had been skinned from a previous restorer. That restorer used chemical that was too strong for the surface of the painting. So when he took off the dirt and the nicotine and the face, that's not what you want to do. But in this case, we were asked to restore the face back to what Lincoln looked like. So it was a little bit stronger. So we added some strength to the lips, to the nose brow, to the mole. We actually had the painting set up on the easel along with the representation of Lincoln so that we could make it to the best of what Lincoln's likeness was. And if you look at it in the ultraviolet light, you can see what we did. Again, no mysteries. These areas of dark areas of paint, that's us. That's what we did. Very clean, concise. We didn't go crazy. We didn't rebuild his beard. We just fixed those areas of loss, those areas of stain, abrasion, added accents to his face, got him back on the wall so that it looked like Lincoln. This is the Buttersworth painting that was sent to us. All of those white dots is water damage. Painting had far too much moisture, and that flaking continued unabated for years. This is a detail of it. You can see there's barely, we would say about 20% of that painting is gone. But we have to put that back. It stinks. It's a lot of work, but we got to put it back dot by dot, piece by piece, to bring it back to that. Now, not only do we have to put that painting back together, we have to put all these sail lines back, all these rigging lines back, with a fine brush so it doesn't look wide, obnoxious. It matches the painting, it matches the hue. This ship over here, I'm gonna go back. Barely even see it. It's not even there. But we have to interpret. Once we start adding color and we start looking underneath the microscope, we start understanding what we're looking at, we understand the values. That's the other thing. Sometimes you don't even know what you have until you start putting it back. You start doing dot by dot by dot, and you say, oh, there it is. Again, all those sail lines, all those rigging lines have to be painted back. If you're lucky, the past restorer hasn't gone too aggressive and all those sail lines and rigging lines are there. Most often than not, they move. They're the first things to move. When I say move, you start adding chemical, you start adding 100% acetone, toluene, diethylmethylide. Those canvas lines, those rigging lines, those sail lines go away. Well, if you don't have those, you don't really have the ship painting that you wanted. So we have to make sure they're all strong, they're all back, they're all neat. And varnishing. For every painting that comes in, we varnish it. A lot of people say, oh my God, you varnish it, you add varnish to it. I don't want that. Varnish brings out the luster of a painting. And the whole point of varnish is to make the painting look universal, because blanching happens, drying happens, just because the artist painted it and it looked lush when he did it. As it dries, those browns dry differently, those darks dry differently, they become dull. A varnish layer brings the whole thing to a nice sheen, a nice gloss. But we don't like gloss. So we start off with a glossy varnish, then we add wax to it, and we bring that varnish down to a nice satin finish. So all these paintings here, they have a nice even gloss varnish on it that then has a satin finish. So you get the whole picture, but you don't have all that light reflected back at you. And this painting is from the Wethersfield Historical Society. The illustrator's name is Ralph Nelson. He was around in the 30s, 1930s. And this painting was rolled up when it came to us. It's about 4 feet wide by 9 feet long. So we laid it out, and because it was rolled up, an environment that was cold, I think it was in a basement of the Historical Society, mold, flaking, moisture, all these areas of white are damaged. Well, we have to paint all those back. And that's what we got. And now it's back on their wall, part of their permanent exhibit. They can appreciate it, they have something to brag about. So I have a couple more conservation examples that I'm going to show you as we go forward. Walter Blount Palmer. Now this is after cleaning. As you can see here, look how yellow and dirty that is. Nicotine, soot, yellow resin varnish. They all have an impact. They all have to be removed to bring that luster back. The woman brought it in, she said, oh, my relatives are so angry with me for bringing it to you. They don't want it restored. They say that I'm going to ruin it. Well, hopefully when she gets it back, their socks will be blown off. And that's important for us. Word of mouth is so important in our business. We have to make sure our clients are happy and that it looks good on the wall. If we don't do our job right and it looks like crap, who's going to come to us? It has to look pristine, it has to look perfect. I spoke earlier about Rabiskin glue linings, how difficult they are. Wax linings, as I said, you add a little heat and they come right apart. Rabiskin glue is a little bit more troubling. So Francisco here is removing this Rabiskin glue lining piece by piece. He'll spend an hour doing it before his eyes get tired, before his wrist gets tired, before he fears he's going to make a mistake and cut through that canvas. So piece by piece, he scrapes that old Rabiskin glue off. He'll do inch by inch. He'll kind of work his way through a grid system. He'll stop, he'll put it away. He'll come back the next day. He'll do 2 more hours on it. Stop, put it away. It could take him 2 weeks to go through a painting. Square by square, piece by piece. And that's it.